Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Russell Aaron, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Hi, we're so excited to share another episode with you that we recorded before the shutdown. We can't wait to welcome you back to the Plaza. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will reveal all of our opening plans and guidelines once finalized. Until then, stay healthy and safe and enjoy this episode. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you doing,
great.
Lisa?
Thanks for having us back.
I'm doing great. I love what we have to talk about today.
Are we talking about Fremont East?
We are talking about Fremont East, one of my favorite places to go out in Vegas.
Why do you like to go to Fremont East?
I like it because of the type of people that go out there that it attracts, and the bars, all the variety. The cocktails are really good. I feel like what they're doing there is just blowing up and really cool, a cool vibe.
There's a lot of big turnout coming out. We have new restaurants going in. We have new bars coming in. Like, even 5 years ago, we didn't have some of the things that were there. They were kind of almost like little ghost towns or little buildings that were just empty, you know? And, like, now we're seeing a big turn. And
maybe that's what I like so much about it, is that when I moved here 6 years ago, was not what it is today.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, when I moved here about 5 years ago, I knew Fremont East. Even when I traveled here to visit, Fremont started for me at the El Cortez and ended at the Plaza.
Ooh, interesting.
And
all right,
because I came out, and that's what I was accustomed to. I took the deuce down, dropped you off at Binion's, and then would go one way to El Cortez and the other way down towards the Plaza. But
was that just based on landmarks? One was here, so everything between is just your Fremont Street? Is that how you were basing it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just organic. I didn't experience everything past Fremont East, and at the time it wasn't built up like it is today.
Sure.
What's your favorite bar on East Fremont?
Mine used to be Beauty Bar. I used to go there all the time and hang out and drink. But, now I think Therapy. Mm-hmm. Therapy's one of my favorite ones.
They have good picklebacks.
Ooh.
I would say probably the Commonwealth.
Ooh.
I think that's a great place to go if you have somebody you bring it into town. I think that's a great spot to bring people.
Jonathan, what's your favorite bar downtown?
Probably, Lisa, the one that has the most history for me would be the Downtown Cocktail Room. Although they don't have my favorite drink anymore, which was called the Downtown Dill. It used to be a version of a Bloody Mary, but you could have it at night, not just in the daytime. But it's a special place to me for a couple of reasons. One, it was the first bar I went to on the day I landed in Las Vegas. I think we talked about that in episode 1. And it's where I met a lot of the people that I now know today and had built relationships with. And when I moved to town, I was living in the Las Vegas Club. I could walk down the street, and that was my hangout spot. There was nowhere else for me to hang out at that time. So that was a special place there. Downtown Cocktail Room is a special place because it's where I had my first date with Emily, who was my wife. And we had a whole weekend of dates, actually, but that was the very first place. And we went outside. I'm going to tell the rest of that story. But
there's an outside, like in the alleyway?
No. I told you my brain story today.
No, now I want to know. You can't just leave us on it. All right.
I don't want to hear this.
No, it was where our first kiss was. We had our first kiss in front of what is now Le Thai, but at the time was a Philly cheesesteak.
It was, yeah.
Place. So that would be Downtown Cocktail Room, Lisa, to answer your question. But now there's so much choice and options, but that is still a special place in my heart.
I said Beauty Bar. I think you said Park, right? What was your favorite bar? Do we ask you, Gary?
So Beauty Bar is a great one. It's got a lot of history. It was the first lease we ever did in downtown Las Vegas in 2004. Beauty Bar was definitely the first bar to come downtown.
Sure.
Then Griffin, then Downtown Cocktail Room. Park is very cool. Obviously today, Beauty Bar is no more. We have a crazy story about how it was a great business, and then it got sold, and then it got sold again, and the last operator was not particularly good. We had to evict them. Many people don't know that was our tenant, not our business. So when they try to say the Plaza was evicting the beauty bar. I don't know if any of you remember that story last year. It
I
was nothing
do.
to do with the Plaza. The same landlord of the Plaza is also the landlord of beauty bar. So it was the landlord who was evicting the beauty bar. But it was a pretty crazy time. And so beauty bar is being remodeled now with the gentleman we're going to be talking to later on in this episode, Ryan Doherty, who we've leased it to. And he's going to build a pretty cool space there with a new patio and rooftop bar.
Was that like a pretty smooth deal when you were trying to get new tenants for that? Did you have like a lot of people coming in? You had to like sort through who'd be the best?
We did have a lot of people looking, a lot of brokers calling, especially once a beauty bar went so public with their eviction.
It's a hot place, right?
Yeah. And the tenant went to the news and made it a huge story, so we got a ton of brokers inquiring about the space. But Ryan Doherty, as you'll hear later, is just a first-class guy, first-class operator, and he wanted the space for probably 3 years prior because he has a vision for the whole street. So he was a natural person to give it to. You got to remember that block. So Tamares owns what is today La Comida, Commonwealth, Latai, Beauty Bar, and what was Don Tomama.
Right.
And when I moved out here in 2005, Beauty Bar was there, but all the rest were vacant spaces, except for Latai was a Philly cheesesteak place. And I always tell the story how I saw what was happening and how this was going to become the Fremont East Entertainment District. A lot of people in Tamares, especially in the New York headquarters, were saying, sell these buildings, they're just small little retail stores, what do we want to deal with them? And
was that while you were out here intern or working at first you saw this?
Exactly,
Okay.
2007.
Oh, wow.
And that was like one of my first projects. So I actually remember one day part of cleaning up that street was painting the storefronts. I painted it myself.
You
painted
did?
The storefronts
Did you write your
myself.
name and then paint over it? Like, did
No,
you do that?
I remember sitting on the street and all the crazy people walking by saying, like, what are you doing? We were just painting the storefront to clean it up because Al Cortez had said the buildings looked really bad. Could we do something with it? And so we did. We painted the exterior. And but Latai was this Philly cheesesteak business. And they were paying rent. And I told Poyu, I said, Poyu, we should evict them because they're really not bringing the right clientele to this area. We want to make this the entertainment district. For those that don't know who Poyu is, listen to episode 1 and 2. But Poyu was the owner. And we evicted them. And the next morning I went down there to put the padlock on the door with a locksmith. And there was like 4 or 5 people waiting there at about 8 a.m. She said, what are you guys doing here? It's 8 a.m. You're waiting to get in. And did I tell the story in episode 1? And they said, yeah, we're here for the Philly cheesesteaks. So I said to the locksmith, something's not right, but we locked the doors and nothing happened, and they were all very confused. And it turned out a few weeks later we came to find that there was actually some other product being sold out of that store, and it wasn't just Philly cheesesteaks.
Oh, wow.
And that's why people were lining up there in the morning. It was very popular. But we sat with an empty building there for a couple of years because of the idea was, look, let's get the right people in there, and that's why Latai was so important. Don Tomama was a great variation for the area to have a piano bar, and that I really believe that, not that I'm taking credit for the whole area, but I really believe that getting Latai, getting Don Tomama, getting Commonwealth was the foundation for all the other projects to happen in that area.
Yeah.
And even Tony Shea saying, wow, there's some cool stuff happening downtown. Look at these bars and restaurants. This is where we should be as a young company. So the history of that area is very important because I feel like that was my first project in Vegas, but also I was told in 2007 it's never going to happen and it's not going to be worth anything, and today it's a very, very valuable piece of real estate.
That's your perseverance and persistence staying through, right?
Absolutely. Stay the course. Tough times don't last. Tough people do.
Stay with us. We have much more for you on the corner of Main Street.
I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who said those famous words, that's gold. So that's the name of my podcast. That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We try to expand your horizons.
It's intense, but only for like 7 seconds at a time.
I've had relationships that ran about that. We keep up on breaking sports news.
Well, wait a minute. Drunks and fornicators, I think they met in the first round of their playoffs for the right to go to hell. I think that was the way that worked, yeah.
That was the play-in game.
We are patrons of the arts. And then I also love the idea of the fictional autobiography
Well, I didn't want to be sued, as you've learned. It's not fun.
And we take you new places.
Stop first at the RV Museum in Elkhart, Indiana.
I hear they have an amazing roadkill wing in there. That's amazing.
You got to say they actually have the first Winnebago that ever knocked a deer into the side pocket.
We're here for you twice a week. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
We are joined by Ryan Doherty, entrepreneur, co-founder of Wendo Media Companies, former chief experience officer at Life is Beautiful, owner of Corner Bar Management, which operates Park on Fremont, Commonwealth, Laundry Room, Cheap Shot, We All Scream, Lucky Day, and Oddwood. An all-around Vegas legend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
How's it going today?
It's going great.
Nice. Well, this podcast is all about downtown, about Jonathan. So let's start with how you and Jonathan first met.
Do you remember?
I was just thinking that. I think Jess Larson, I believe, introduced us. Former Bacardi rep that was servicing us downtown. I think that's how.
So I don't know if that might be the first time. My first recollection was you and I had lunch with Michael Parks in the Beat, and my back was bad. And I was like crooked like a question mark, bent over, and you wanted to go and see what is today Commonwealth was the space.
Okay.
I gotta believe we met before that. What year was Commonwealth? That was 2011 when my back was bad. So 10 years.
That's when we started building Commonwealth.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that was the first time we met. But I just want to say thank you for being here with us. We're very lucky to have you and people with your vision to join us on this podcast because we're talking all about downtown and not just downtown, but the city and where it's heading and trends and entertainment. And I wanted you to join us because I see you as sort of a pioneer of the next generation. It's not nightclubs anymore. The things you're doing are pretty cool. But frankly, you've been doing it for 20 years. So I think the question everybody wants to know is, they see the things you're doing today, but how did you end up in Vegas and I guess end up in this position wanting to do these things?
Sure. I moved to Vegas in '96. I grew up in Boston. I had 2 years of school under my belt at UMass Amherst, and I was in the hotel program. I wanted to get to California. I wanted to do an exchange, just get out of inner city Boston, get out west, and to a Boston kid, California was like a David Lee Roth video, right? And UNLV had a hotel program. They had an exchange with UMass Amherst. So in my head, I was like, I'll go do 6 months in Las Vegas. It'll be a blast. I'll drive to LA every weekend, 3 hours away, which never happened. But I got to Vegas. I met a whole bunch of great people. I did have a blast. And then I had
So you're in high school?
No, it was college. I came here in
So you're not 21?
Fall of 1996, not 21. I came here, I was 19 years old.
Did you have a fake ID?
I had a fake ID. Yep. And
it was
really easy back then. Vegas wasn't what it is today. It was a lot. It was the Wild West here. So my fake ID worked almost everywhere back then.
So what school was that?
UMass Amherst is where I came from. UNLV is where I went to. Only for one semester exchange. Originally, that's what it was for the hotel program. I had very typical Boston parents that were like, well, you're not staying in Vegas. You're coming back after the semester. And I kept finding an excuse and to get to stay one more semester. So I'd be like, I met some great people. I joined the snowboarding club. I want to stay through winter. I had every excuse in the book. Eventually, no joke, I took the LSAT to stay longer because I said, they're opening a law school. I'm going to go to law school. I had no intention to go to law school, by the way. But took the LSAT just so I could extend for one more year. And eventually my parents gave up on me and I just stayed. I moved out here by myself, so
give me an idea, because I only came here in 2007. What are you doing at night in '96? There's no nightclubs. There's no towns.
There was a few nightclubs, not like there is now, but they were nightlife spots. They were few and far between. You mentioned Michael Parks earlier. We both got a job at the Hard Rock Hotel when it was like in its heyday, 1996. I worked in the restaurant. He worked at the pool. The restaurant was called Mortoni's. There was no other restaurant inside the Hard Rock except for Lucky's, 24/7 Lucky's. And I had the maitre diva, is what she called herself, was this girl named Gina, who was from Boston as well. And I was a barback and a busser originally, but then I became a waiter when I turned 21. And at that time, the Hard Rock, the dot-com boom had happened. The Hard Rock was like this hub of celebrities and musicians and actors and actresses, and they all had to come to one restaurant because there was only one choice. She was really in line with me on service and hospitality, so I would get every great table that came in. I eventually met a guy named Sean McPherson who was opening up Babies at the Hard Rock. This is, years into me working at Mortoni's. At that time, I had I'm fast forwarding a little bit. This is 1999 now.
Yes, 3 years. We've got a long way to go.
But I had a blast. to go backwards, the Hard Rock was a place we hung out. There was a club called Sharky's that we hung out in. College bars on Maryland Parkway.
You're living in a house with. You told me the story that you lived with 6 other people in a house.
So that was post-college. That was I was actually in the dorm rooms for the first year I was there. Then I moved to a fraternity house that was right across the street. It was on Harmon and Maryland Parkway, and that was where like the wheels came off of going out every night. And it was really small town back then. You could go out and see everybody in one night because there was only so many places to go. So Wednesday nights you were at Moose McGillicuddy's, and Thursday nights you were at the Drink, and Friday nights you were at the Hard Rock Sidebar, and Saturday nights you were at Utopia. And
were you ever downtown or doing anything down here?
Never. We had, visits from my parents. So I would take them down to vintage Las Vegas and kind of walk Fremont Street, but no one was really downtown back then. And there weren't bars that like college kids were popping around to. We had the run of the Strip. What was the Strip back then anyway? There was a time period around 1999 that I was doing once a week house music night at the China Grill. The China Grill group had come in. They opened up Rum Jungle, China Grill. This was at Mandalay Bay. Yep. And Jeffrey Chodorow was the owner, and this guy named Kelly Jones was running his operation. And I was just 21, almost 22 maybe, and I had a proposal. I went in. There was trance music was really big at that point, and there was a lot of people doing trance music. So I went in and proposed them on doing a deep house night every Wednesday night.
We're not all being quiet, by the way, because normally I got some people chiming in here, but he probably wasn't born yet. He probably wasn't born yet. She probably wasn't born yet. So they're all
1985, my man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't born into Vegas life yet. Okay, you were still
2003 is when I was here.
Right. So everyone's quiet because they're like, wow, this guy was here.
Great.
Yeah.
No one was here at that time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a lot of us here at that time in college, and there was a big group of us out. Right. It felt like the town. It really was a special time in town. I would have 150, 200 people show up to these once-a-week Wednesday nights events, and I thought I was the biggest promoter on earth. There was a line out the door.
Was anyone else doing that, though? I guess
there was no one else really doing it. There was only a couple nightclubs. Utopia was the main one, and it was mostly trance-based. And there was Club Rio was there. That was mostly like top 40 based. And there was really nothing else going on. Even the House of Blues hadn't opened yet. So inside Mandalay Bay, we didn't really have any competition. Like, they weren't doing a nightclub night. They were just doing live music production. Mm-hmm. So during this time, I was also working at Mortoni's and doing the once a week. Sean McPherson was a hotelier out of, or he was a bar and restaurant owner out of L.A. that became a hotelier in New York. He owns the Bowery Hotel, and he owns the Jane Hotel and the Maritime Hotel. Still.
Oh, wow.
Pre his hotel days, he was opening up a club at the Hard Rock with Peter Morton. He would come into my restaurant, and I would have him, I would be a server. And he also was kind of popping around to night spots and figuring out what was going on pre-opening the club. He was a great tipper. Yeah, everybody was a good tipper back then. It was Comp City back then, too. Almost everybody was, like, free, and then you just get a tip because people were getting comp for playing, staying, just, being generally spending money. And so he would come to the restaurant, come to the once-a-week club, and they eventually asked me, do you want to work my front door at Babies? And I was like, great, I'll do that. I said, but I got to go away. I'm going away next week. I have a wedding in Tahoe. And for some reason, we were there for a whole week. We were going to go for the wedding. There was rehearsal dinners. I was in the wedding, and we were there for a whole week in Tahoe. The second day I was in Tahoe, he called me back and said, hey, listen, the assistant general manager, we just caught him stealing. We're going to get rid of him. You want to be assistant general manager to a place? And I was like, great. Yeah, I'll do that.
Nice.
And he goes, we'll teach you everything. Don't worry about it. But you'll be fine. I was like, okay, that's great. I hadn't even started yet. 3 days later, it's the day before I'm leaving, he calls me back and says, I got to get the general manager back to L.A. His wife's driving me crazy. Do you want to be general manager of the club? I'll work with you the first 2 weeks. Make sure you're okay. And so I became general manager before I even started any of the positions. Within 1 week of becoming the doorman.
At Babies.
At Babies. I ran Babies for the next 2 years. He used to call me home alone because he was opening up hotels in New York, and he would never come out there. I'm 22.
Wow.
What a great time that must have been.
It was a great time.
There was no bottle service. There wasn't the same nightclub atmosphere at that point.
There really wasn't anything with like the high-end bottle service. Like we would give a whole table full of people waters if they wanted them. You know, it was like.
What was it? People were just ordering drinks and.
People were ordering cocktails, right? Like I think some of the drug trend followed some of the club trend back then. You know, and there was people who would just come in and get a whole bunch of waters and maybe some, you know, a bottle of vodka that would hardly ever get drank. This is 1999 going into 2000. After that, I left Babies. I started working in various other nightclubs. There was a group back then called Above the Bar. They owned and operated, or were about to own and operate, Coyote Ugly, Bikinis, Fat Tuesday.
I had a date to Coyote Ugly when I first moved here.
Oh, yeah.
It was in New York, right?
It was, yeah.
Is it still there? I think
it's not still there.
No?
No. It was, at one point, the most profitable bar in the country per square foot.
Yeah, it was great. I remember. In 2007, I went there. I remember that.
Yep.
Okay. I had heard a story that you had a bar in. I never, in all the years I've known you, I've never asked you this, but you had a bar, didn't you, in Diamond Resorts?
Polo Towers.
Polo Towers.
Yeah.
What an odd building to have a bar in.
It was the only one I could afford. It was the first club I ever bought, and I would think I was 24 years old. I borrowed money from a bunch of people back in Boston, and took over the little lounge.
So it's a timeshare building, and you had the rooftop bar.
Yeah. It was actually a lounge on the 22nd floor, and then the rooftop was right above it. So you would walk up the stairway from the lounge area to the rooftop where the dancing was. It was so makeshift, and looking back on it, like just so shoddy, but it worked.
It did well?
It did work, yeah. And then...
How long were you there?
We were there
a year.
Talking
about? Is that 2000?
That is 2002. We were there for a year, and then Marriott bought out that project, and they were like, we're not in the rooftop nightclub business. You guys are out of here. And they bought out our contract. And I went on to work with Above the Bar. I opened up Coyote Ugly, Fat Tuesdays. I was mostly doing marketing at that time, and marketing at that point was printing a bunch of cards that said, no line, no cover, or $2 off a drink, and passing them out on the strip.
Guerrilla marketing.
Guerrilla marketing. Before, like, the call girl hucksters were out there passing out cards, we were out there passing out cards. Okay. And we would have hundreds and hundreds of cards come back every night, and that was the main way to get people into the doors. We weren't buying billboards. It was all hand-to-hand, and I would take a stack of cards, and I would put a highlighter on the corner of the cards, and this is your stack, you're green, and this is your stack, you're red, and at the end of the night, we would literally start stacking them.
Who got them redeemed?
And you would get $1 back per card. And I sometimes had 25 people out on Las Vegas Boulevard doing this. They ended up opening up more and more places. A bunch of nightclubs started getting approved for casinos. There was a time period where, at first, it seemed like every casino needed a show, and then it moved on to nightclubs. Every casino.
But you were at this point. You're 10 years into your Vegas career.
I'm 26.
You're like the cool kid in Vegas. All these nightclubs coming, presumably talk to you about what happens in Vegas, basically. Yeah. And you're the guy who've been doing it for 10 years when they're all still moving out here.
Incidentally, Andy Massey was from Boston. Sean Christie was from Boston.
Right.
Andrew Sasson was from New York, but he was working with Andy.
All East Coast.
There was a bunch of East Coast guys. Yeah, that Jason wasn't even on the scene. This was way before him. And there was only so many people you called up and said, how do you operate in this town?
Right.
This is what we're doing. I was printing so many cards and so many flyers for the group I was with, and then I started printing for other people as well because I could get lump pricing. I was sending all of my printing to Florida or New Mexico. It was the best prices, but then I would have to overnight ship it here. Everybody in the nightclub business is last minute, so it would be like you needed to get a flyer to print and then have it within a few days. I finally was doing this so much, going back and forth to Delta Dash and the airport. I was partners with Justin Winiger at the time. We were both in Above the Bar doing marketing, and we finally said, let's just find a printer here in town that we can do this printing with. Found a printer. The guy was like a very typical 9 to 5 went home to see his family right afterwards, but had a press that we could use to do overnight printing. I rented his press from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. We bought our own paper, bought our own ink, and we had our own pressman. We would come in, print all the flyers we needed, clean up, and then leave the next morning. And we did that for years. We would deliver our own flyers in our own cars. Eventually, the printing business got to the point where we could leave the club business, and now we were full-fledged printers.
Providing
printing and graphic design services.
Was it just nightclubs, or was it more?
Start off with just nightclubs, and then we would started going to like when you go into the airport, you see those racks of like everything to do in Vegas. They're called rack cars, and you pull out all the Grand Canyon tour. And we started going to all those customers and saying, hey, we'll beat your prices. There was no printer in town that was doing it. And I said, and I'll get it for you in 24 hours.
Did you want to leave the nightclub business, or did it just happen that it...
I wanted to stop staying out till 7 or 8 in the morning. Back then, the nightclubs were open really late. And then there was after hours, which I was never involved in, but I felt like after hours didn't even start till 6 a.m.
Was Dre's open back then?
Dre's was open back then, but it was still new on the scene.
Okay.
So the nightclubs still kind of went until 5 or 6 in the morning. And they were really good about, now it's almost like they turn the lights on at 3, 2 o'clock sometimes just to a full room. Whenever you stop drinking,
everybody out.
They get you out.
Yeah.
They were nicer back then. We all just kind of let you stay until you stopped dancing, which was made for some late nights.
So was that the beginning of 944?
That was the beginning.
Was 944 your magazine?
Yes. That was
so
the
funny
beginning.
Story. When I moved in 2007, first bit of PR I ever got was in 944. I'll never forget. I still have the article. Who was was it Melinda? Who was the editor?
She was one of them. I'm not sure who was the original. I think she came along as the second editor.
Amy, maybe?
Yeah, Emmy. No. Man, I can't remember who started us off. We had a few of them.
Well, anyway, that was my first bit of PR in Vegas. Was 944 magazine. I still have the article.
What did they say about you?
It's a great question, Lisa. They just had a kid from England who's moved here and with Tamara's and looking to revitalize downtown. Because back then they really weren't covering downtown much. I mean,
no.
It was just the beginning of people starting to talk about what was happening down here. And so 944, what you did was 944, and then it evolved into 7, or there was a long time between those two?
There was a few years between those two. I think that was our best-selling issue, by the way. Probably no coincidence.
The one with me in it?
Yeah, the one with you in it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I heard that.
So we were doing printing, and we had a ton of customers that were nightclub, restaurant, shows. We were doing all their printing for them. I had a friend in college at UMass Amherst that had moved to San Diego. He was living with a guy named Mark Lautenberg. Mark had launched 944 in Phoenix and was trying to launch San Diego, and his dream was to launch Las Vegas and then 10 more markets. I was trying to take all the customers I had and start a magazine. I was originally trying to start Racket, which ended up coming later.
Oh, yeah.
I
remember that.
I was telling my old college roommate, who's now roommates with this kid, that I wanted to start a magazine. I have this client base. I can just go back and sell them something else, and there's no, counterculture magazine here. Vegas Magazine was the only one. It was a little bit more polished. They went after, jewelry ads, and I wanted to go after bars and nightclubs and restaurants. So he goes, wait, before you start a magazine, you got to talk to this kid. He has 944. He's got an infrastructure set up. He wants to come to Vegas anyway. Instead of you guys competing in a few years, why don't you make a deal now, which we ended up doing. So we took over the publishing for Las Vegas, launched the magazine. We had 944 for years and years here. I think it was 4 years before we decided to do weekly. At that point, we had now done the magazine Spy on Vegas. We had, all
that was always the best as well. If you went out the night before, you had to see if you made it onto Spy on Vegas the next day. Someone took a picture of you at the different clubs. Did you guys ever see that when you were here?
They still do that, and I always look, and
Spy on Vegas?
Yeah, well, not Spy on Vegas, but there's some photographer there, and I always get so excited, and
then you're never on
it.
Shame.
So we had photographers out for 944. We had, photographer would go out. This is when digital was replacing film now. You don't have to worry about going into a nightclub and shooting 500 shots, which is what we did, but then we would only use 6 per page in 944. So I had hundreds of extra shots. We just put them online and then started selling that to nightclubs. Okay, you want to advertise on Spy in Vegas, you can advertise on this online version of 944 in a sense. So we were selling them printing, we were selling them 944, we were selling them Spy on, and then eventually we said, let's go into the weekly market, and we launched Vegas 7, and then went up against Greenspun and Las Vegas Weekly, and City Life was around back then as well.
7 ran for a while, didn't it?
7 ran for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That went fast. I remember it.
Yeah. It's crazy looking back on that, having like a deadline every 6 days, you know, working in that like mindset and not having it. I'm looking back, and it's tough to imagine that we ever did that. And so many people put so much effort into making sure that was never late ever. And it was a
every week
hectic time. Yeah, every week.
It's not easy.
Out, you know, a 60-plus page newspaper every single week, and it had to be new.
So how did you transition into downtown Las Vegas?
Besides for me being very competitive.
You were the main reason. But we can go to the secondary reason, which was we were printing. We had moved to right behind Mandalay Bay was where our office was, but we had one of our most important clients in Henderson, which was Tony Hsieh. Tony hadn't moved Zappos downtown yet, and back then people don't realize it wasn't always an online retailer. There was a catalog that was mailed to your house where you went on and did normal catalog ordering. It was called the Magalog. It was a magazine catalog hybrid that Zappos was producing, and we were printing it and also designing it.
Did you coin that term?
Nope, that's Zappos' term.
Okay.
Yep, they had it. They printed hundreds of thousands of copies of these things all the time, and we were the ones that were printing it. It was a huge
Did you meet Tony, or were you just
we knew
Zappos marketing doing that?
So we met Tony originally, but then we got passed off to like their team and worked really closely with like most of the design team over there. And
for anyone that doesn't know, Tony was referring to Tony Hsieh, who's the founder and CEO of Zappos.
Correct. At that time, Tony was just starting his vision with this downtown project. And when I say vision, you just walked into his office and there was like 500 posters on the wall with like ideas that could happen downtown. And he had the footprint called the Llama that was going to be, you know, he had just sort of executed the real estate play, so he knew where his border was. And Justin and I had rented an office at one point when we were just a small printing company. And then we knocked the wall down next to us and took over that office, and then knocked the wall down next to that and took over that office. And we did that 5 times. So we had at one point 5 different color carpets and 5 different color walls. And we lived like that for a long time. And we finally got enough money to redesign the place so it was linear and
This is the Wendo Media
offices. This is the Wendo Media offices. We had redone all the carpeting, redone all the furniture in the office, custom wallpaper. The place looked trick, and it took us a long time to get to that point. Not even 10 days later, Tony sat us down and said, I want you to move your company downtown. And
by the way, it was a smart move of him.
Yeah.
I mean, you're cool guys doing good stuff in town with a history. If you want to put downtown on the map, bring people like yourselves down there.
He was trying to find...
But that must have been, 2011?
2010, I think we started the conversation somewhere, midsummer. We had 90-plus employees working out of that office, and they were all younger. People about town, there was editors and photographers and graphic designers and writers, and it was a cool group. And it was a really special time to be in that office. Like, it was fun every day to go to work. We had a choice we had to make. We didn't, not that it was ever threatened, but we definitely didn't want to lose them as a client. They were so big. So Justin and I went back.
It was like a gangster mob deal?
It wasn't.
If you don't come downtown, you won't be producing my magazine
He was
anymore.
like, we really want you to come downtown. It's a big thing we're doing, and you guys are an important part of the fabric of this city with your newspaper, and we think it'd be great if it was downtown. We went back, and Justin and I were like, oh, man, we just redid the office. We can't move everybody down there. Upheaving like the whole company and moving everybody is going to be too much. So I said, let me talk to Mike. Let me see if Mike was doing real estate back then, Michael Parks, the illustrious. And I said, Mike, is there any buildings downtown that we can potentially take over and make something? So I can say I'm doing something downtown. And Mike reached out to you, and I think that's like how our relationship really started. You had the 525
Fremont Street.
Fremont,
Hollywood Fashion.
Hollywood Fashion.
With the pawn shop. I say it very weirdly because I say porn. It wasn't a porn shop. It was a PAWN shop in the back of the Hollywood Fashion.
Yep. With
the connection, which is today the laundry room.
Yep. Yeah, we went, saw the building, said, all right, we'll find the space and then figure out what we want to do. We had a great corner space, and it's now Commonwealth. We looked at it. We said we'll put a rooftop on it. I'm from Boston, which is a Commonwealth, and we also were trying to do it for like the good of the community.
So I got to give Ryan credit on this. If you guys had seen Commonwealth when he saw it, it was literally it looked like a warehouse in a way. The boat truss ceiling a little bit with not boat truss, but it had like the arches in the ceiling. It was in disrepair, the back room especially. And he walked in and was like, "Yeah, I got a vision for this." And it wasn't it wasn't like it is today with a bunch of other bars. I mean, you weren't the first by any means, but sure, Beauty Bar was there, Downtown Cocktail Room was there, Griffin was there, but there wasn't much else.
I think you just named them all.
I think that was. Yeah. I think that was so to come in there with that vision to be like, yeah, I'm going to put I don't want to say a pub, but a bar / to me, it's more of a pub in England, but by Las Vegas standards, it's a cool bar, and it's got a good. I mean, the vision you had for it was pretty amazing back then because there was nothing else. And the other thing is you couldn't go past 6th Street. Today, you pass 6th Street and you get down to Ferguson's or Triple B's or the Container Park. I can't believe I just said Triple B's. I mean, that's embarrassing. We can cut that out. but yeah, the vision you had was pretty amazing to take that building from what it was, and to put you were the first one to do a rooftop bar as well downtown.
Yep.
So why did you go back into this nightclub business?
Well, I had a friend who was an operator, so I didn't necessarily go back into the nightclub business. I got into the interior design business and built, and I wanted to build them, not run them. So Commonwealth was the first one that I got to sink my teeth into. There was a lot of layers to that building. We put the rooftop on. It was supposed to be, just like you said, a pub. That was built to be a cocktail bar. No TVs. You went and you had a beer with your mate and you socialized. And it was really supposed to be around that. We've become the de facto nightclub. Kids wanted to dance. They wanted to be on a rooftop too. We learned that real quick. We had a small DJ booth up there that became a larger DJ booth that became now a focus of our entire model. Having a significant sound system, dance forward environment is now what the rooftop of Commonwealth is. But it was never supposed to be that. So we opened up that club thinking, we'll have a rooftop cocktail bar, and we haven't even put the bar stools in the rooftop. We never could. It was always so busy up there, and the cocktail program went right out the window. Laundry room became the space where if you wanted to have a proper cocktail, you could go back there. But, there's 3 different environments. It was always supposed to be that, rooftop, interior space, and back speakeasy.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Tony had nothing to do with Commonwealth.
No, or Park.
Because I think people sometimes think, and I love Tony, but I think people sometimes think, people coming downtown because of Tony's giving them a free ride, it's easy, there's no risk, it's Tony's building, it's his investment, but this was truly your investment, your vision, and you signed a lease with me, but as far as I know, you had the vision, you took the risk, and were a pioneer of that building. You didn't have some
downtown project, didn't fund it. We go into our friends. I had partners in the media company that we had success in the media company. They wanted to do more projects, and I went and told Tony. I said, "Listen, we can raise money, save the money to seed other businesses because we need them down here. 3 bars does not make a bar hop. Go fund someone else who can open up some more bars or restaurants or anything down here." It was really, we thought we were going to do 1 bar and be done with it. While we were in the process of building Commonwealth, the Maharaja Hookah Lounge went up for sale, which is across the street.
That was a strange place.
Which is now a park, but it was a hookah lounge. The landlord was going to give the place to Steak and Shake and put a drive-through there. And I had already been swept away in the romance of having like this cool downtown area. And
So wait, you foresaw what it is today. You're saying in 2010, 2011, you had an idea that there was this downtown needed this area of entertainment, and you thought, yeah, this is going to happen here.
Yeah.
Forget the hookah bars, forget the weird buildings and the other things that were there. You were like, this is before Inspire. There was still that 7-Eleven corner. This was before
Inspire. Downtown project hadn't built too much yet. Michael Cornthwaite was down here with Downtown Cocktail Room. The Griffin was here, and Beauty Bar was here. And I think that there was a lot of people when we first started building that were like, okay, the area's getting gentrified right now. And I'm like, it's not really. It's like we're taking some old empty building and we're putting in a local bar. We're trying to add to the neighborhood, not like, take away from it. And there was this whole don't gentrify downtown, which I don't think was happening. It wasn't like we're putting in a Starbucks. But Steak and Shake was going to go into where the Maharaja Hookah Lounge was, and we were all up in arms that there was going to be a drive-thru and they were ruining the vibe of the block. We can't let this happen. I went over and begged the landlord, the building owner, to give me the property, not even knowing what we were going to do with it, just not doing a Steak and Shake drive-thru. There was a little sign in the parking lot that said "Park on Fremont, $10," and Park on Fremont was born after that. Yeah.
That was the name?
Creative.
Well, no, the name was the Maharaja Hookah Lounge, but there was a little sign that said "Park on Fremont, $10." There was a guy that was running the parking lot, and that was the sign to park on Fremont for $10.
I never knew that.
So at Park, there's that secret seesaw, and you touched on the laundry room. What do you think it is about all these secret spaces that you don't advertise or talk about, but that people are just so drawn to? Every time I take someone downtown, I always show them the seesaw and blow their mind. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
To seesaw.
And I mean, also like all the art on the wall is.
Yeah, we had
one.
I think people just like being in on a secret. You know, these little hidden spaces are always what people seek out. It's nice to take someone somewhere that they think no one else really knows about, and they had a special time going into it. It is so we had the reason the seesaw come up. We had to, even though we were open air back then, the law was that you could smoke on a patio space. Then it became you couldn't serve food and smoke in the same area. So we built a smoking area, and it was so plain to go back there. So the seesaw was born. I was like, well, we'll let people smoke in seesaw. That was like really what it came down to. Park
That's
was
it's creative.
Yeah, Park was since we called it Park, the name came before the concept, and I thought we would do just sort of like a nod to parks, no matter what they were. So it could be national parks or Central Park or children's parks. So the seesaw, and if you are looking down when you walk out the back door, you'll see a hopscotch board. It's within the tile work. The birds that are behind the bar come from, let's say a national park, and the carriage that's on the roof line on the back comes from Central Park.
Picture
and
the horses.
Yeah, it's all kind of a park tie-in. I actually bought a barn in Nebraska. I can't even make this up, buyabarn.com is literally the site. Bought a barn in Nebraska, had it torn down, had it shipped out, had the wood treated, and that's what's the entire outside cladding. There is a guy in Mexico City that was buying up all the old churches that were shutting down, and he would take the church pews and all the rest of the wood and cut it to any shape you want. So anytime you're walking in out of park, all the wood floor is all old church pews. There's a rail that I took from the railroad yard here that's the footrest for that bar. Everything in that bar is found items and just thrown together. This is back when you had time and it was fun to go shopping and collect all this stuff. Less time now to do it, but it was really fun to put it all together back then.
It's amazing. And how did you get involved with Life is Beautiful?
A friend of mine who worked at the Cosmopolitan, Rayhan, who originally started Life is Beautiful, was his idea. He had...
Actually, you introduced me to Rayhan, now that I remember. Okay. You did connecting with him, and he came and presented what is Life is Beautiful to me for the Plaza's 10 acres. I totally forgot about that until you just mentioned that.
Yeah.
And we were going to do Life is Beautiful on the Plaza's 10 acres to the south of us, and it just got too big, and I said, you know what, you should talk to... I'm not taking credit for connecting him with them, but I remember I said no, but there are some other people he might want to take this idea to, and...
Yeah.
You definitely were the first person to tell me about Rayhan. Now that you mention it,
I have similar story with how he got to Tony eventually, because he was sort of at a crossroads. He had done an exceptional job programming the Cosmopolitan. Mm-hmm. For 2 years, they threw a ton of money at talent and entertainment, and they had an outstanding program. There was a concert every day, I felt like, over there at one point. He wanted to do a music festival, and it was all about, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. I got to leave my great paying job at the Cosmopolitan that's very flashy, and I'm super comfortable over here. But he knew that eventually they were going to stop doing so much talent. So I had told him, listen, if you can do this downtown, you can probably get the money from Tony. That was originally the conversation. I go, but you're trapped. You have to do it downtown, otherwise he's not going to fund anything. He eventually took the lead. Presented to many, many people, but eventually Tony was the one that wrote the check for it. Had it downtown. He was producing the festival for years, and then Tony eventually acquired Wendo Media. And in the acquisition, we had to take back a part of the festival and help produce that. So, year 3, we were sort of non-consensually into the music business. Life is Beautiful was our
do you think he did that, though, hoping you guys could fix it. Not fix it, but make it more sustainable.
I think there was,
for a better word.
Yeah, I think there was, okay, let's get you guys fully downtown now. We'll have your company down here, which was One Media. We'll have you guys help produce the festival. We were already working alongside the festival. We were the official media partner already with all of the magazines, all of the online assets. We also owned a company called Shoot to Kill was what it was called back then. It's called Critical Focus now. We did all of the filming of the festival, everything that we, film reels for sponsors. So we worked alongside the festival. So we knew a lot of the festival workings in those first 2 years. So we were just a natural fit to come in and help with the production.
So Life is Beautiful was 3 years old when you got involved?
Yeah.
Officially, you were involved as a partner, but officially there was 3 years of it until you...
No, we helped produce the third year.
Oh, you were year 3.
Yep.
That's right.
And then year 4, Ray Hunlang was no longer involved, and we were producing it on our own year 4, 5, 6, and 7, which is the most recent year.
What do you think Life is Beautiful has brought to downtown?
I think the main thing it did was amplify downtown, because we've had so much open. There's been accelerated growth between what everyone has done and Tony has done, and I think some of the best views of downtown is when the festival is happening. Everyone's busy, everyone's activated. There's so much spirit and youth and just energy downtown that I think people come down for the first time and they're like, this place is great. And they come back, right? Whereas Coachella, usually, and I don't know what your equestrian interests are, but normally you go to Coachella, and when you're done with that festival...
We have very significant equestrian interest. We're the rodeo kings of downtown. So
that's true.
Clearly we have a big equestrian interest.
But chances are you don't go back to the polo fields at Indio, right? You see Coachella, and then you're gone. People do come to Life is Beautiful, see downtown for the first time, come back subsequently, not for a festival, but just to go to downtown venues.
I mean, it's the only festival essentially in the streets.
It is.
So you got Park, you got Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a two-part question. What do you have coming up next, and where do you see that area, the Fremont East Entertainment District, going in the next decade?
We currently have under construction the former Beauty Bar, former Don't Tell Mama, and former Vanguard space. We have a rooftop that's being built across former Beauty Bar and former Don't Tell Mama space, which will be twice the size of the rooftop I have over at Commonwealth. We have a significant nightclub with 2 dance-forward, DJ-driven areas.
These are the Beauty Bar and Don't Tell Mama spaces?
Well, just Beauty Bar.
Okay.
It's going to have a rooftop across the 2 properties. The back patio and the current interior space of Beauty Bar will be one nightclub. It will have 2 DJ-driven areas, 2 bars, very much like what I have over at Commonwealth, but this is much, much bigger.
Yeah, the beautiful new alleyway that connects to it.
Yes, we do. It's getting there. Needs a lot more layers, but it's a great start. I'll tell you what, we're going to have an entrance in that back alleyway, so I couldn't be happier that they actually did something with it.
That's great.
We have a locals entrance that's going to be in the back alley. Another secret thing that people like to say. They know they're in the know. The cheap shot, which is the former Don't Tell Mama space, will be a theater room. So we're doing a proper theater room with much like the Box in London or New York, 100-person rowdy vaudeville burlesque show that happens twice a night, Thursday through Sunday.
Now this podcast is public. And people will hear that you've announced what's going to be in these bars. I don't want you telling me I broke the scoop to anybody, any bloggers out there or anything, that I'm responsible for this. This is a public record that you're on here.
Yep, that's okay. It's okay. I have to get ahead of my press release now before you release this podcast.
Okay. And then you got Vanguard, which is?
Vanguard, which is going to be a mezcal and tequila bar, also with the DJ sound system. So it'll be Latin house.
So, obviously you don't think there's too much going on down there yet.
No.
There's plenty of appetite for more.
I think there is. I think in terms of the way people are consuming entertainment these days, it's changed. There is a 21 to 28-year-old demographic that is looking for a more affordable night out, that cannot go to the Strip every night. I think the nightclubs on the Strip have somewhat priced themselves out in terms of, can I go 2 nights to a nightclub? Right? Can I spend $100 to get in to see Calvin Harris and then $20 a cocktail once I'm in there? And I think although people seek that out, we have gotten to a point now where day life has become more important than nightlife. So these kids are coming to town, and we generally used to see them, let's say a couple of years ago, pre-gaming on a Friday or Saturday and then going back to the Strip for both nights. Then we would see them one night a week where they were coming down here and maybe spending an entire night because there was enough to offer. There was enough bars and restaurants where they could come here and have a full night out and feel entertained. They are going and spending their money at the day clubs, and that's their strip experience, and then sometimes coming down here or doing something else, but not going to the nightclubs for 2 nights. They're coming down here 1 or 2 nights and then doing day life while they're here.
Right.
It's been a weird shift.
Well, and, when you look at the hotels downtown, really none of them have any day life or nightlife yet. And, nightlife's a big word. Everyone thinks automatically of nightclubs, but even just bars, cocktail lounges, there's really not much to do after 10:30, 11 o'clock once you're off the Fremont Street experience. There's some live music in some of the casinos, but there's no venue for like a 21 to 35-year-old that you're talking about right now, unless they want to go listen to the casino lounge live music. So I know you and I are talking about what that could look like in the future, because I think for the Plaza, we struggle with that. When Oscars closes, bingo closes, the sports book closes, the showroom's done. 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. on the weekend, there should be something happening.
Yeah. I think that first block of Fremont is a gateway to the rest of East Fremont, and we have a very ambitious neon package going on all of our new buildings. Mm-hmm. I think there was a long period of time, even up until just a few years ago, where you would leave or you would walk down Fremont Street, and there might as well have been a wall as opposed to a bridge there. They just wouldn't go across the street. Las Vegas Boulevard was the ending point. They would walk down Fremont Street and then turn around and walk the other way. We have just enough twinkle now that they walk across the street, and with the new Whole Enchilada project, which is a huge citywide urban development project that has already landed and somewhat completed the first block of Fremont Street, they'll have string lights going all the way from 6th down to 10th Street. It'll be a huge indicator that there is more to see. So when you get to the end of Fremont Street, under the experience, you see 5 blocks of string lights festooning, and you understand there's more to go to.
And Ryan also has a hot dog cart on Las Vegas Boulevard and Fremont Street, where if you're really nice to him, you'll get a special card that says you get free wieners for life.
There's only 2 of those cards out there.
I'm the proud owner of one of them.
Yes.
Who's the other owner?
Tony Shea has the other one.
Wow.
It's free hot dogs for life.
I'm limited to 2 per visit.
That is true.
Still, that's very generous.
Did this happen at Burning Man? How did you get this card?
Had to work a long time for it and ask him for many, many years, but now I have a special gold card in my wallet, which I don't have on me right now, which has my 2 of 20 free hot dogs for life card. Relish in delicious wieners.
Yes.
Love it.
That's great.
Besides Vegas, what's your favorite city?
New Orleans. Absolutely. I have a major love affair with the French Quarter. The food, the vibe, the people. It's such a sinister town. If you want to get in trouble down there,
And he was just
very
at Mardi
easy.
Gras.
Yeah.
Were you? How was it?
I thought it was fantastic. It was my first Mardi Gras.
Oh,
I've been to
really?
New Orleans many, many times, but never for Mardi Gras. I had a locals
I think I saw
tour.
the Golden Nugget had a float. Is that possible?
They may have. Yeah.
Could it just been like a vintage Vegas themed float? You didn't see it, did you?
I
some
did see
images
some
of it.
Vegas. I did see a couple Vegas themed floats, but I'm not sure who sponsored
We should
that.
look into that, Lisa. Do a Plaza themed float next year.
It's fun,
Mardi
man.
Gras.
It is
Let's
fun.
do it.
It is a remarkable time down there.
And what is the best cheap date night in Vegas?
Man, cooking at home and watching a movie. I've had a girlfriend for years, so I'm not sure if I have. Where do we go?
Still qualified to
Best
answer.
cheap date night in Vegas. Man, we used to go down to. It was always getting out of Vegas. So I don't know if it was a night, like going to Red Rocks or going to Mount Charleston and hiking around and seeing some of that is usually the best cheap. I mean, it's free for the most part, but I used to love going up to Red Rock and hiking around, that area, and that was the cheapest.
You're
date
supposed to
we
say Oscar Steakhouse, and Jonathan takes care of the check. But
That's-
we're sitting right now with
Yeah.
fine wine, hanging out. Ryan, bring any date you want here.
Yeah.
You have a free ribeyes for life.
had. Jonathan's cheapest date is the hot dog stand. Joy of hot dogs.
That's where I take my kids now.
Oh, what's the best concert you've ever attended?
Man, I'm a Fish fan, so I go to a lot of Fish shows. I'm an undercover, jam band kid, and I've been to 170 plus Fish shows. I think I stopped counting, and many, many Dead shows. I have lots of favorites, but I'm sure
You
they're
ever
going to
seen
land
the
on
Misfits?
Fish. No, I've never seen the Misfits. I've never seen the Misfits.
Yeah, he's a big fan of the Misfits.
I'm a big fan of live music, though. I could probably go down the line on lots and lots of concerts that were really impressive to me.
So Ryan told me a story. I think it was your first date with Ilana, your girlfriend now, of the Rolling Stones at Sand Dollar.
Yeah.
Can you imagine seeing that, Lisa?
No.
I know Sand Dollar's your favorite.
I was there last night.
You were there last night. Now that I would have gone to Sand Dollar for.
I was courting my current girlfriend, and there was a T-Mobile had opened. There was a Rolling Stone show that was going to be at T-Mobile. I got tickets to the Rolling Stone show, and she was living in LA at the time, and I was like, all right, I got to find a really good reason to have her come out to Las Vegas. So, Rolling Stones are going to play. Perfect. We get tickets. I'm like, come out. We're going to go to the Rolling Stones concert. We're going to go to a really early dinner. And literally, as I'm pulling up to the airport to pick her up on the day of the show, they sent a text out that the first show for Rolling Stones had canceled.
Oh, no.
So now I'm scrambling to figure out what I can do for the night, and I have nothing. My one-trick pony was taken to the Rolling Stones concert. Everything else seems like, pale in comparison. So I go to dinner, and I'm still texting people, like, on the side, like, what's going on tonight? Anything good? Trying to figure out what to do to fill in the next 5 hours. And Eric Kabik, who was a photographer for Life is Beautiful, was a photographer for 944 Magazine. I'd known him for years. He had said, listen, he called me, and I answered the phone, and he goes, listen, if you come down to the Sand Dollar tonight, the Stones cancel. Like, oh, God, I know. He goes, but they all want to play for the most part. So except for Keith and Mick, they're all showing up to Sand Dollar. They're going to go on at 9. If you can get here by 7:30, I got the 2 tables in front because they're reserving them for me to take pictures. So finished dinner as fast as we could, flew down to Sand Dollar, and sat in the front row and watched all the Stones play for the whole night. They played for 3 hours, and it ended up being the best first date, and I got my Stones fix that night. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us and being with us today and sharing your story, and thank you for everything that you've done for Las Vegas, especially downtown.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and be sure to tell your friends about this podcast. If you have any questions, you can email us at podcast@plazahotelcasino.com. You can tweet Jonathan at Jonathan Jostle, or you can tweet the Plaza at Plaza Las Vegas. We'll be back next week with another episode of On the Corner of Main Street.